So my name's Eddie. I've been a trainer for about 4 years. I got certified through American Council of Exercise, but I use my RKC certification the most, my kettlebell cert. I'd say kettlebells and barbells and TRX would be my specialty. We use barbells for strength, kettlebells for conditioning, and TRX for movement and stability. My training philosophy is I train for performance, not necessarily for physique. Everything's based around how healthy you are, in my opinion. Interesting fact about me: became a trainer right after I got out of the military. So that's me.
I'm not following.
Name, fitness experience, education, just anything about your training
Okay.
experience. Everyone's gonna be using this microphone, by the way. Everyone's talking in the middle microphone. So project at that microphone.
Hello. I'm Emily. I've been in the fitness industry about a year. I specialize in conditioning and trigger point therapy. And my philosophy, I guess, is I want to increase people's quality of life more than like fitness. Can you it's my time. Yeah, that's it. That's
Cool.
it.
What's up? Just like 10, 15, 20 seconds, whatever you need.
I'm Mikey. I started training just this year, and my focus sort of revolves around strength training, and I'd like to sort of expand that to Olympic lifting, and just like, I guess, revolving around performance as well.
My name is Lindsay. I have a bachelor's in exercise science, and I've been a trainer for about 3 years. I like doing performance-based training as well, and I specialize in athletic performance and powerlifting.
My name is Ted Jonah. I've been a personal trainer for about 13 years with Equinox. I like to say that I'm a jack of all trades, master of a few. The few are, I like specializing in injury prevention for running, and most of my training and philosophy or my passions revolve somewhere around there.
Yelena, I've been a trainer for, I guess, over 3 years. This is my first year that I've actually been a full-time trainer without doing anything else outside of it. I've been professionally competing in swimming, and lately I dedicated all my, I guess, life towards moving better. My kind of niche is getting people to move out of their comfort zone, getting range of motion, whatever we can get it from, and definitely I have like 10 clients, all of them are hypermobile, so my life is a struggle. So, keep you very busy. Yeah, very, very busy, and keeps me on my toes. So my goal will be for the next, I guess, another year to get more specialized in strength training a little bit more and learn and expand. Yeah.
Sweet. My name is Marianne. I have about 11 years of experience. 11 years of experience, which is all from like elite athletes to people with disabilities and spinal cord injuries and stuff like that. And my goal is just to get people moving well to their best capacity, and using movement as a way of directly improving quality of life. I have my degrees in athletic training, nutrition, kinesiology. I'm getting my doctorate in physical therapy, and and I just want to educate and empower people to move well.
I'm Nicole. I've been a trainer for almost a year now. My background is in dance, so in training I like to use body weight, core, and flexibility, but I'm trying to get more knowledge on strength training and expanding that. For me, my training philosophy is really revolved around mental as well as physical health, and combining the two to just improve quality of life and make people move, look, and feel better.
All right, I'm Ali. I've been a trainer for almost a year now. I played football my whole life, so I love athletic training. I keep looking at the mic as I'm talking. Other than that, I'm certified through NASM, and my philosophy is simple: just the more you move, the better you feel.
Amen.
I'm Jess. I've been in the fitness industry for about 4 to 6 years, but training for about a year professionally. And I come from more of a athletic performance standpoint background, so to speak, where I played basketball in college. I got my Bachelor of Science in exercise science, pre-physical therapy. Hopefully going to follow in Marianne's footsteps, and then who knows what. But my main goal is to really expand my resources that I have and educate my clients so that they can build healthy habits for life.
Sweet. Cool. So this is going to work. I have, like I said, a bunch of topics in front of me. I can almost guarantee the ones that you guys brought, there's probably going to be some duplicates if there's not that big a deal. What we'll do is we'll go one off my list and then one off somebody else's list. And we'll go one off my list, one off somebody else's list. And we'll just keep going around unless we start to run out of time. If somebody has anything that they really want to talk about, we can skip ahead. So I want to get everybody that has something on their mind a chance to say something. Don't really want this to turn into like a huge rant fest. Like obviously we all feel pretty passionately about certain things. I know I'm gonna have to restrain myself a little bit, but I feel like you guys know I rant a little bit sometimes. But yeah, try not to make it just a huge rant complaining session. Like the idea is to get as many different perspectives on a singular issue as possible. Like I said in the email, to kind of tell you guys what was going on, I want to kind of delve into the gray area of the fitness industry where things aren't necessarily all right and they're not necessarily all wrong. It's very situational. And the first topic that I wrote down here is not science-based normally. So it's not exactly the same as the rest of the topics, but I feel like it would be a good way to get the ball rolling. How do you guys feel like social media has had an influence on the fitness industry? Is it a positive thing and a bad thing? What do you guys think? Yep, go for it. No order or anything like that.
I personally think that it's much more negative than it had positive, to be honest with you. The fakeness of the posts that people bring, especially women, to one another and the education, quote unquote, that they give out is wrong because the posture is bad, their position is bad, the mechanics behind the movement, it is wrong. And it's all based on aesthetics, not primal mover, why you should be doing it. So,
Yeah.
I'll play devil's advocate for that. I think there is a positive niche for it, and I think the biggest thing is that you can control what you want in your news feed. So for me, I have a mixture of both, to be honest. I have a mixture of certain people that gear more towards the aesthetic, and then I have people that are more towards the functionality in terms of how you can teach certain movements. And now there's kind of like this balance of here's a good movement, and I'm going to have a good-looking person demonstrate it. So it's a blessing and a curse.
I think my argument to that, not my argument, but my perception of that is that people don't know how to pick and choose, right? So people don't know how to take control of their news feed or what to trust. I mean, online, everybody, it's almost like you'd be catfishing your account could be a catfish in a sense, because you could be delivering certain content that, might be more or less quality, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So you could have a very negative quality, or, you could be just promoting something that, isn't ideal to, on an education standpoint. So we get certain training day to day, and, month to month, where we stay updated. But I think a lot of times it comes from people who are influencers or just more about self-promotion rather than, trying to better the knowledge of other people, expand that.
Yeah.
I feel like overall it does have a positive effect, or one effect it has is that it encourages people to be fit and to get into fitness. Because so many of these people that haven't worked out before, they see someone else doing it and they're like, oh, I can probably figure out how to do that. So more or less it encourages people to get into the gym, which that also allows for professionals to take over.
Yeah, and I feel like I've seen more females in the gym too, whether that was motivated primarily through aesthetics, but the point is it gets them in. And also think about the communities that are built too around that.
Cool. So the question kind of becomes then if it's better to train wrong or not train at all. That's what I'm kind of sensing from everything here. We have all the bad material on the Instagram and everything, all the social medias that people are looking at, but they don't have a filter to see if it's right or wrong or not.
I feel like it gives people the opportunity, kind of like I said, to, if they're doing it wrong, it gives them the opportunity to find someone who knows how to do it right.
Yeah.
It's like a gateway.
Right,
It's,
yeah.
It's an
And
introduction.
You can have somebody that you followed, like, you know, for me, it's opened up my accessibility to information that I want. So that to me is hugely positive. Now, do I have to file through some things? Less so more. Now that you collect resources and truth outweighs false. And now how that goes is we're kind of the leaders in that industry in terms of what we deem as true and false. So again, whether it's more positive or negative, I think without it, there's less accessibility.
You want to go? You got something? Or, no, Mikey? No, Lindsay, you got anything? Let's be over faster than I thought.
The topic that I brought in is actually just kind of similar. It's virtual training.
Virtual training. Gotcha.
Yeah, pros and cons.
What's your stance on this? What do you? I don't really know a lot about it. So.
Well, so virtual training, depending upon like where it comes from, I think it's a good thing for people who price point can't make it work with an actual personal trainer, but it's also again a bad thing because you might be someone who doesn't have the proper form, stuff like that. But it's also a very good thing for people who have been athletes and have had that.
So you're talking about people that like will go online and just buy like an influencer's program that they just made? Okay, I see what you're saying.
Buy nutrition plans.
So it's not necessarily
things
online
like that.
coaching, but it's more where you would be like sending in videos to a coach or something like that. You're thinking of just like buying a cookie cutter program.
I mean, it's all of it. I mean, there's different things where you can just buy the program, you can buy the coaching, where it's just basically like someone making a mass video saying like, this is what you.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I don't have any experience with that. I've never looked into it before, so I really don't know anything.
We'll touch base. I think it's an interesting concept because you'll see people come to the gym and do PX90, right? And some people will like lose a lot of weight. Now, whether that's as specific and specialized to what we would recommend, some of them say they get results. Now, you have different categories of how injured or not injured somebody gets, but I think it's the perception of it being a threat to our industry is, oh, Men's Health came out with the full body workout. I do full body workouts. You still have to, it makes us up our level of coaching because that surface level is now being covered on a more, like videos are becoming more in depth. Exercise cueing is even starting to, they're learning how do we cue this exercise through video. So we have to be aware of that in terms of where the industry is because we can't dictate where people put their money other than to do the best version of fitness for ourselves.
All right. Let's go into another really big, broad topic. High intensity interval training versus moderate intensity steady state or low intensity steady state, one of the two. And yeah, exactly. What do you guys let's kind of talk about the benefits and the pros and cons of each, where you would apply one versus the other, things like that.
Do we want to put the goal out there first? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Goals definitely relevant.
So state the goal.
So, from my perspective, so far, based on my own training and my clients, I realize that I prefer, honestly, regardless what the goal is to do moderate and keep it consistent. Way less injuries. Clients are not fatigued mentally. They're more likely to come back and they're more likely to enjoy their workouts flat out. That's my conclusion over the course of 2 years. Now, is it better to continue having high intensity and then lower intensity days? Absolutely. I would do them probably 2 times a week and really max out around 80% and then keep it to 60 to 70 on my moderate days.
So less days of high intensity training,
Correct.
but more days of moderate intensity.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're coming from a perspective of your clients for longevity's sake, obviously, for the lack of injuries, but also that they would enjoy it more. What if you had a client that just like wanted to get their ass kicked in like 15 minutes. Would you kind of like that's too bad, or how would you approach it?
I wouldn't, well, I would explain to them the negative aspect of it, which usually would go, you would be fatigued. I want you to keep on moving tomorrow. I don't want you to be that fatigued that
So
you're,
gassed.
yes, so you can't really recover within 2 days, and I'm supposed to see you, you're supposed to do your homework. And just the nature of things, it doesn't work that way.
We also got to think about what systems are in place too, like
Yeah.
nervous system, for example. So sometimes, oftentimes we get clients who are, they have very stressful and demanding jobs. Maybe they don't get enough sleep or recovery, so they tend to be a little bit more in sympathetic mode, which is like fight or flight, right? And so to add that type of training on top of it, that just further taxes their nervous system.
Cherry on top.
And that could hinder recovery, which then could affect, performance in the long run.
And plateau.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it comes to a goal. I think if you take Barry's boot camp 6 times a week versus seeing a trainer 6 times a week, your program's going to vary. So triathlon programs are based on the more versus you break down 112 miles for a marathon runner. There is some higher interval trainings in terms of track workout, but most of it is very slow, very steady. So again, injuries.
Yeah. But there's also benefits to incorporating the high intensity training. You want your heart to be able to meet those various demands too.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've always been in favor of the greater the stress, the greater the adaptation. So I mean, the harder you push yourself, the faster you're gonna adapt, and the more, how do I say this? Like the more conditioned you're gonna be, and it's just a matter of people like pushing themselves, and a lot of people that I've trained in the past hate cardio. So
Me.
for you to exactly, I hate it too. But for someone to be able, who is very unconditioned, to get them to a stance where they can complete my workout without wanting to die. I mean, they
Or kill you.
exactly right. But I feel like they enjoy the high intensity stuff better because it doesn't last as long, and then they have more stuff to do rather than sitting on a treadmill or
Yeah.
an elliptical for 30 minutes.
Yeah, and it's like overcome that mental hurdle too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also comes down to like energy systems, right? And like not just developing an energy system, but utilizing each system and not always to max, right? We want to make sure that we're still being optimal in all the other training. So most of the time, you want to incorporate high intensity just so that, right, just for that threshold, just for the energy development, so to speak. But most of the time, you still want to be, in that steady state. That's more sustainable, I think.
Could you expand a little bit more about the different energy systems, like real quick? Yes, you can, girl. What Jess is referring to is that there's different substrates, right, or sources that your body uses. So you're using like glycogen, which is your body's primary source of fuel, or fat, or ATP, which is like for quicker bouts. So you just want to be efficient in being able to pull energy when you need it.
So as much as I love starting a strength, that's the biggest thing they get wrong. Is they say increasing your squat max will increase your like if you're a biker, they always use the biking example because every single time you hit the pedal down, it's a percentage of your one rep max. But it just doesn't. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Exactly. It's I totally see the logic behind that.
Yeah.
But
Physiologically, not quite. Yeah.
Because it's like,
he's got that one.
then you can have it all as long as you do strength training, which you can't. It's specificity.
Proven, not true. No.
Let's do you have a topic you wanted to bring up? No, okay. I was gonna skip ahead to you since you got to go soon. Ted, you got anything?
I mean, for me, it's not. I always find that the balance of what is the balance between, lifting and endurance. And it's not so much a controversial topic. I think it's more of a topic of discussion. So, it runs along the lines of what you just said. Where do you find the balance for an event? And when it becomes an endurance event, it is some lifting, but not max lifting, because there's a weight that somebody needs to hold. So you can't just say deadlift more, run faster. I don't know if you guys want to share your things outside of my views for that, but you have in the triathlon world, you also don't want to reach the lowest weight you possibly can, because then there's deterioration of your performance. So it's finding that balance.
Definitely.
So.
I mean, it goes back to the specificity. Yes, specificity. It goes back to the what? Specificity. Yeah. So your body is going to adapt whatever it is that you get used to, and there's only so much like energy and so much that we can do before we compromise like tissue integrity, right? And so you can't expect to, unless you're Chuck Norris, like you can't expect to max out in strength and in endurance. It's got to be like a balance. Just a matter of priority.
And a lot of our clients want both. And we need to be able to draw that line of like, dude, I want to run a marathon and I want to bench 300. I'm like, great, maybe you probably can do that, but at what cost?
Right, exactly.
So.
Is it worth it? Because the recovery afterwards, you will get to the goal that you're going towards, but after you finish it, like she's a really good example. They were training for the marathon.
Oh, smart.
So after that, how did you feel?
I was exhausted.
Yeah, it was like a week. So it was a burnout effect. So that would be the cost.
Like barely.
Yeah.
I've taken 3 days off, 4 days off of like not doing anything, and I'm still like.
Correct.
And you're an athlete, so just imagine the other clients who haven't trained as hard as that. So
doesn't mean you can't like push or challenge yourself when you're training for either, but it's just like, are you truly reaching your full potential by trying to achieve both at the same damn time?
Yeah.
And it's worth it, really.
Yeah.
Well, and like for that, you guys probably get the question too a lot is, should I do cardio first or should I lift first? And my answer to that is always, what's more important to you? Like, do you want to, do you have a cardio goal that you want to hit? Do you want to run a 5K, 10K, whatever? Or do you want to get stronger and build your muscles? So it's just basically depending upon what their main goal is.
And then they get mad because you didn't give them a straight answer.
Exactly. What time do you have to
Yep. It's like when we were swinging the other day. Jess and I were swinging the other day up in the 4th floor, and I think we finished our 4th set of 5. We set our bells down, and a member comes up to us and goes, "Hey, what muscle group does that work?" And I go, "All of them." And he didn't like that answer.
He scoffed and walked away.
Yeah.
Then he goes and picks up a bell and starts swinging on his own.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah, like I can't.
Yeah, exactly. All of them, yeah.
People suck.
I don't know his name. I've never
seen
him before. You might know, but
I haven't seen him since either.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Scared him away.
Yeah.
He's like, these trainers,
these assholes.
Okay. Ted, do you know anything? Oh, you just went. Yeah, that's right. Yelena.
I guess I had one in relation to training on unstable surfaces. Great, everybody's done it.
Where's Tommy?
Well, Tommy asked me to ask you guys. Just do the honors for his sake.
I know, just see him like peering.
Everyone is sort of
So my aspect would be, what is your goal?
Right.
How beneficial is it for you? Can you do it in another aspect of just not using one or the other limb? Which of course you can, and I think it's way better. Like I found that body weight exercises and just reducing, let's say, one arm or a single arm, single leg, helped me way better than using, way better, it's not really good English, but without much gooder. Much gooder, that's a good one. Not using most of all is my point. That would be my point of training, and I guess anybody else have any aspects, points?
I mean, I am an advocate for BOSUs in the right setting.
Yeah.
So, like, coming from a dance background,
In the
BOSUs
bedroom.
were in the bedroom. But so for me, like with my dance training, like that was huge. Like for stability and like you're on one leg, so you're already challenging that part. Like so when you're training on one limb, like what else how can you change that? So I found that like using the BOSU helped me a lot in my performance along with strength training and like feeling more balanced, feeling like getting that extra like thing. So I think it just depends on what you're working toward. So like for me, like it was a huge part of like my training and progressing and getting better as a dancer. But I mean, again, like it just depends on the goal, I think. Yeah, like that, you know. So I think that just depends on the person.
Like it definitely provides it's like an additional thing to train with, you know, in terms of like challenging your body's stability and proprioception. But then when you think about the factors that were like in your routine, you're doing like body weight exercises, right? Yeah. So in that case, I think that's appropriate because it's safer, you know, it's unloaded. Whereas if you were to try to like do like max out an overhead squat or go like heavier, you know, it just like doesn't
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I definitely think there's a place for it with people that we work with a lot, because a lot of them spend a lot of time sitting at a desk, hunched over. You know, they're wearing crazy shoes all the time. You know, where their feet, the muscles in their feet aren't really, you know, working properly. So I think kind of getting on there. A lot of people have ankle instability, not a lot of mobility in the ankle or in their back, and there's different ways to utilize the BOSU where it's safe, I think. But then again, getting them to understand the points, you know, the safety, the boundaries of it, I think is the other important barrier we face.
Yeah, I would agree with pretty much everything. I think we're all on the same page with this one, where you can use it as an apparatus.
I will instability, but say I have a lot to add on this. So, only because I can be chastised for it. I mean, I literally did a program 30 minutes a day where I taught a surfer how to stand on a stability ball.
That makes sense though. Yeah, replicating the setting that he's going to be.
Yeah, but some people
performing
say, how did that transfer? Like, you know, because a lot of it is the joke behind functional movement screening is like standing on a ball is usually the one. It's like, why would you squat a barbell behind? I mean, we weren't doing that, but it's along those lines of like, again, I think there's a place for it. So, and I have included it in my program. I feel like I can teach it.
Does everybody cringe when they see someone standing on a BOSU with one leg doing a like single bicep curl or something?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Does anyone want to learn how to stand on a stability ball?
I'm trying.
On a stability ball? Yeah.
I can teach it.
Yeah, for sure.
The most I did was big knees, and then I ate shit right afterwards.
All right, let's go one off the list here. Actually, where was it? Oh, this is an area of weakness of my own. I would love to hear your guys' input on it.
We all need it.
I know, right? The one thing.
Area of weakness.
He's weak.
Interesting.
Funny.
The pros and cons, and where you would use static stretching versus dynamic stretching.
Oh yes. I'm just learning how to stretch.
Okay, next topic. It's like Ted could chime in first. We could.
I mean, so yeah, I mean, stretching is something I've done a lot. I think there's static stretching to me, the forms and dynamic is a lot of it is sometimes not fixing the issue, but putting the issue at arm's length away from becoming a problem. If that makes sense. So there's certain things that we can do to help get around the area so that certain things can be performed a certain day, which might be foam, like, ooh, my calf's feeling real tight. So we might foam roll and stretch that, but that doesn't fix the underlying issue, but it allows the performance to be a little bit better for that day, if that makes sense. So there's a certain form of foam rolling for that. In terms of dynamic, as a runner, I absolutely say do a good dynamic warm-up in the beginning. Don't static stretch too much because you will deplete your performance. So our clients, static stretching at the end, I let them know, hey, this is feel good stretching, and they like it. There's a certain way that I do it that they feel better and they feel well deserved at the end.
Go on. Well, I'll say, do you guys think it's ever appropriate to incorporate static stretching before a workout?
I definitely think there's a place for it.
If they've warmed up themselves, like if they walked for 10 minutes or went on the something to get your blood flowing, because I always tell people never stretch a cold muscle. So don't come out of the locker room and start like stretching your hamstrings, because that's how you tear things.
That's like literally like as a dancer, like hearing static stretch, like I'm like, like that stresses me out because like everything. I mean, that's just the basic, like the principles of like movement is like you need to, you know, we never would just like go right into like anything. It's always like, you know, flowing into it. So yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Which that's kind of funny because I'm coming from a cheerleading background where we static stretch all the time.
Before practice?
Not necessarily before practice, but especially after, because like you're pulling tricks and you're doing things, like you need to be able to put your leg over your head.
I would get stuck.
Yeah, I mean, it would, because like,
because there's certain things that you need to do that you can't get from a dynamic stretch, but that's like a very specialized, like that's a specialized sport or thing that you're doing. So for like a general person, I mean, I will stretch my clients because, like Ted said, they like it.
I think it's very important to also explain to your clients that a lot of them have been recently, since the foam rollers became like a boom, they think that foam rolling is stretching. So they're like, oh, I stretch. And I'm like, so what exactly do you stretch? And I was like, well, I foam rolled this, and they name me all body parts. And I'm like, well, you actually are not stretching anything. You're just releasing, you're literally doing the myofascial release, and that's about it. And you realize later on that they're super, super tight because they've been calling stretching
Foam rolling.
But dynamic stretches have been working way better with all my clients, including myself. They actually got me to the point that I was able to correct my anterior pelvic tilt as well as not having a butt wink for over, 20 something years. So they have helped greatly, and as well as like a little bit of static stretches at the end. And as that said, like you have to know a place and time for it.
And not all static stretching is created equal. Like it's completely like it is wide open in terms of how you hit a muscle. Like static stretching is just holding it. How you're holding it, where you're holding it needs to be discussed.
Right. If there's tension anywhere else, like because of that, because of how you're holding it.
Where should I be feeling this? Well, depends on the stretch, depends on what's tightest. That's generally where you're going to feel it.
Absolutely. With dynamic stretching, like your joints are encased in this fluid called synovial fluid, and just the act of like moving it around, it helps to lubricate your joints. So I always tell people like motion is lotion, and that just protects not just your muscles but also your joints too. And I think static stretching can also be a form of like correcting the body too, of like what Ted was saying, like teaching yourself how to hold, so like what parts to release, so that you can move more efficiently too.
Cool. Right on. Let's see. Yelena, Marianne said she didn't have anything. You bring anything, Nicole? Anything on your noggin there?
Huh?
Anything on your noggin?
I don't think so. So the one thing I was going to bring up was BOSU, but we already did that.
I think everything.
Okay.
Ali, anything? Yeah. I know you got a couple of things.
I wrote some down.
Yeah.
But I have two. But
The rest of the meeting is just her talking.
Sorry, I have a lot of questions. I want to see your perspective. That's why I was asking when you're leaving, because I want to hear your opinion on this. So a lot of clients, especially female clients, come in wanting to get quote unquote toned and defined, and say that they don't want to lift heavy weights. So I want to hear everybody's kind of opinion on that. Way to go around that, way to get that kind of definition I think that people are looking for without it being your typical high rep scheme that they, or disguising it in that sense. Or how do you go about that? How do you go accomplishing that without them mistaking it for a quote unquote bulk?
So I have a unique way of handling it because everyone knows I'm the strongest person here. I can just point at myself and be like, well, I'm not the biggest person, but I'm the strongest person in this entire building. So,
Make an announcement, a PA. That's your special event.
Nice to meet you, Mountain. Come on.
But no, I do use myself as an example. When I say that I can deadlift like 450 pounds and I'm clearly not a big guy, like I can easily use myself as an example. And plus, when I'm talking to a woman, you can talk about the whole hormone thing. But yeah, that's it. I honestly feel like I have a reputation for not caring how my clients feel. So
I don't necessarily. I wouldn't say that I care, but it's just something that comes very. it's just so overspoken about, I
Yeah.
feel like. And so I want some clarity on
Yeah.
that kind of
Everyone
how
affects.
clients should go about that on their own then too. You know, people should come in what you think they could accomplish on their own without it just being a high rep scheme, not going above 15 pounds. That's what a lot of people come in and saying, oh, well, the highest I've ever lifted is 15 pounds. And I'm like, what do you do? You clap at that?
No, you don't. You're like, boo.
Like, how much does your purse weigh? You know? Yeah.
The client that you gave me, I won't say her name, but she's always saying like, oh, I don't want to do any bodybuilding exercises. I don't want to do any bodybuilding exercises constantly. Every week she says that. And then the other week she said, right, exactly. She says, oh, I don't want to do any bodybuilding stuff. And then the last week she goes, let's do some shoulder lateral raises. I'm like, that's the definitive bodybuilding exercise.
I know who you are, and I'm proud of you, girl.
Anyone else? Toning versus the whole toning issue?
I kind of had the same outlook that you do, just because especially females, they always come in, I don't want to get bulky. And I start with like the physiological, like women do not produce nearly enough testosterone for them to bulk.
Preach.
And that's not going to happen. And I'm like, don't be afraid to heavy lift. And then I bring in myself, I'm like, I can deadlift 350 and I'm going for the record for 400. And do I look bulky? I got a big booty, but
That's all that matters.
I'm like, you want the booty, you gotta lift heavy. So, and that's, I mean, just explaining that to people is that they just need to understand that it's physiologically impossible unless you are supplementing with illegal things.
Right. Yeah.
As well as being overweight.
To be in some kind of caloric cycle for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's and what we gain muscle about like a quarter of a pound each month. Like it's muscle growth is a slow process. So if they've had experience with, you know, because I've heard that before, like, well, I used to work out in the past and I've gained weight. Well, that could perhaps be related to caloric intake, you know? So that's why working with the trainer can help with that, have it more structured.
I also try to tell people that building muscle is how you're going to get toned. You don't get toned by losing fat, because if the muscle isn't there for your skin to hug around, like you're not going to see it.
It's not maintainable. It isn't. If you just do cardio, like where is that going?
Yeah.
It's a fragile.
It's yeah, and you're a week. Let's say you're sick for a week. You come back, you're dead. You're crawling on that treadmill. Versus you're coming back and you're getting a lift. You're gonna feel okay after, I don't know, second set will be flying easy. You will be.
I
Fast recovery.
sympathize them in the beginning first, trying to understand why they feel that way.
Oh yeah.
But then I
Too.
will
How poor you.
no, and then the second part comes is like, you know, there is certain athletes are going to look like the sport that they play, and we use that as an example. Like certain people look like basketball players, certain people look like soccer, certain people look like deadlifters. Like there's this common body building in that realm, but within those sports there's also a difference. So the one thing that's not absent is performance. So you have to accept the performance of what you want to do, and that is going to be putting you on a strength-based program. Now, how your body's going to respond to that is not going to be bulky from where you are, you know. But you have to. I feel like I have to sympathize with them on that realm. And you could use the thing is you can train like the athlete you want to look like to a degree, but you have to realize they're professionals that do it for 20 to 30 hours a week.
That's their job. That's what they do.
So
right?
you don't have that
The
much
volume is
time, so you're
different.
not going to reach that level of performance, but based on your job, based on your time of availability, based on what you can do, let's put those components together. And it's not going to be absence of strength. So, you know, I mean,
Yeah. And plus, having more muscle burns more calories too, because muscle requires energy to sustain itself. So, you know, that means eating more food. So why would you want that?
you know, but I think it's a well-rounded thing. I think you want to be pliable, you want to be able to move well. So there's a form of cardio. There's a form of cardio strength and yoga-ish or type of mobility that you want to keep in your program. To me, those three components are keep you. How do you want to say it? You're resilient.
And also, like, what's wrong with looking strong and bulky? You know what I'm saying?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Like strong,
right.
whereas
But
5-6 years ago it was like very strong.
like rail thin and fragile. No, we ain't about that anymore.
Arms, like, okay.
That's one thing I'll bring up every once in a while is why would you want to go through life in a body that's a fraction of as strong as it could be, or a fraction of as capable as it could be, regardless of the social stigmas that are around, your physique and things like that. If it's limiting you, you shouldn't let. Yeah. So, cool. I think we got time for about 2 more, and then we'll wrap up here. What do we want to?
Oh yeah.
Well,
my next question kind of was going into that from what we were just at. It was more about like the body types, certain body types that people. Oh, do I fit in this one, this one, this one? Like the 3. I'm not as knowledgeable. I don't spend as much time thinking about that or categorizing people into those, just because I feel like everybody has a different body completely. You know what I mean? So I don't like to limit that. But like, what are your guys' thoughts on it? How do you guys?
You do have to train for your body type. Like if someone walks in like 6 inches taller than me, they're never gonna look like me. You know.
I think like the I'm talking about like the ectomorph,
Mesomorph.
Yeah. So I mean, limb length and that kind of thing is that
Anamorph.
Yeah. But more I was talking about like where do I fit into what category.
So on that note, I've always been kind of confused as to why that's relevant. Like why people care so much. Like,
Yeah, it seems more of a surface.
Yeah.
It seems more of a surface concern rather than like what you were saying, where it's like training for that body type. I see it like people seem to care more about the what is my body type? Yes, and what they want to look like if they could maneuver body types, right?
I'm going to piggyback on this. Is there a time that you guys feel that we should stop adding strength to their program? Is there a cap to how strong they should be?
Depends on their goal. It really depends on Well, I would say it really just depends on what their goal is, too.
I always view athleticism as a pyramid, strength being the foundation of the pyramid. Unless your goal is purely strength, if you want to be a power lifter or just if you just want to be strong as shit for no reason, there's no reason to build that foundation farther and farther and farther out if your pyramid's only be this tall. Like we still have to add on agility, speed, and like the skill of everything else, the mobility and flexibility on top of that pyramid. Sure, it's great to have a really solid foundation, but we also want to focus on other things too. We want to have a nice balanced looking pyramid.
Well, and I also think that different categories like come into each other, because if you're super strong and like it doesn't mean you have to be like quick, but it also helps to have that quickness, because if you want to be like I want to be the best power lifter, like you do need some speed, you need
explosiveness.
Explosiveness. So being able to lift a ton and being able to do it efficiently is totally different.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like a marathon runner needs to be able to squat 315 or anything, but they should definitely be able to squat their body weight 5 times at least. Yeah.
It's like the diminishing returns. A decathlon is really good at all 10 sports, but he's not good at beating the best at each individual sport. So that's what I always kind of talk about, is everything you add on comes at a cost. So it's like, and you can't get stronger. If we all could add on 5 pounds to our bench, we'd all be benching 500 pounds by the end of the year, you know what I mean? So it's like, where do you find that line? And then once you've reached that plateau, where do you guys put your focus on? Body mobility.
Recovery.
Yeah.
And that's where you persevere into something that's better than all of that combined together. Voila, you added 10 instead of 5.
To go back to your question about body types, I think it's important to consider the body as a whole, meaning like the body's physiological processes like work as a whole. You know what I'm saying? Like in being able to, have endurance or produce power or whatnot. And then also that the human body is complex too. So there's other factors, other important factors to consider that affect a person's performance, not just their body type, but also like their recovery, their nutrition patterns, things like that. I think those are areas that need to be addressed first, and focus on before we worry about like body types.
Like I don't think it's as simple as 3 different body types.
Yeah.
You have to look at them more than that.
Right.
But it's not something to completely disregard either.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Like to your you have to train for that type.
Yeah. Well, and you can also be a mixture of body types.
Yes.
You don't fall directly into one category.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you guys? All right. So we got time for one more. Do you guys want a sciencey fitness question or a more philosophical industry question?
Yeah, let's just hear both of them.
Do both of them? Okay. So the sciencey one is we can talk about fasted cardio, pros and cons of fasted cardio, or we can talk about the appearance of trainers as far as like if they look like a trainer or not, or if they just have the skills to be a trainer, and if they can properly demo an exercise or not.
Let's do that.
That one? Okay. So yeah, that's the idea. Is if you feel like as a trainer, do you feel like it's important to look like a trainer, or do you just need to have the appropriate skills to be able to coach other people to achieve their goals?
Second one. Definitely
Yeah,
the second one.
because it's like, what does being fit look like? You know? Yeah, you look at power lifters and they don't look like they work out, right? Like objectively, if someone didn't know, to the untrained eye, right?
Fitness should look happy.
What's that?
Fitness should look happy.
Exactly.
I say that to a point. So I think there's an extent to every. I think there's definitely an extent to that. Like you want to be you want to be able to project happiness, from your like natural happiness. Yeah, but you also want to. People, I mean, it's no joke. People judge you right away, right? Especially when it comes to fitness. That's the first thing they see is you, what you look like, and then obviously some of the best trainers aren't always the most fit, but if you look at them, they do seem to live, what they preach. Whereas you could look at a doctor and they could, obviously they know a shit ton, a surgeon or anybody, but they wouldn't be, and they might not look their best, but you wouldn't judge on that. But when it comes to working and living, breathing in a fitness industry like this, I feel like you do have to look the part a little bit more.
I think the judgments come more from the outside. Like if you had someone that had a little bit more like, meat on their bones versus somebody that was like super shredded, like who is the person more likely to train with just based on physical appearance. So I think clients, like depending on the person, like physical appearance like is part of it, but I don't think that necessarily means that like that should affect that person training with either or.
I do agree. Like if it comes to like a member, like if a member were to approach someone, I think that they would be more
Like inclined.
more inclined to approach someone who looks fitter. But I mean, if they didn't see who either trainer was and like sent them like, okay, this person has this, and this, and this person is all functionality in this, and like that person could pick one or the other, and they wouldn't even know what they looked like.
Right. Yeah.
It's funny.
Exactly. Like that doesn't have any, like how you look has like really nothing to do with like how you present yourself and information, how you interact with people, and who you are as an educator.
My client last week actually brought up this topic on its own, and they pretty much said that they would never train with a person who is so into themselves. They'll be like perfect cookie cutter kind of all shredded, and I'm like, well, thanks so much. But yeah, that was so I'm pretty much a bag of potatoes compared to that one.
Because I usually hear the opposite. All my clients are from like an outside the fitness industry perspective. They usually say, "Oh, I wouldn't want to work with a trainer that it doesn't look like they work out." And so, I always kind of question that.
Yeah, one of my best friends from New York, Maureen Summers, she's a plus-size trainer / model. She trains Ashley Graham, who was on the cover of Sports Illustrated magazine.
Who is fine as hell, by the way.
Yeah.
Y'all don't know, now you know.
Yep.
Look her up.
So, and then she trains Orange is the New Black, Tasty. So there's that component of like, when you see that, I got a story for you. But she's changing the perception of fitness. Now you can follow her social media and you'll see she's got a badass squat, but she's a much bigger in the fitness industry.
Yeah.
But there is absolutely 110% a place and following for her.
For sure.
So it's more of what she's changing the perception of what fitness is, and she moves well, she eats healthy, she carries a bigger set. So I think in terms of, you also can't discredit somebody who has six-pack. So it's the
Six pack
reverse.
just means you can take a shit.
Yeah, so you have
That's it.
you just have to be careful, and there's that reverse shaming and reverse shaming that goes back and forth, and it's like, well, just because I do have six pack and that's the gold standard on social media, doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Well, and you could also not have a six-pack and appear like you do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it goes, and you can be out of shape and not be a good trainer. You can be in shape and be a good trainer.
Yeah.
You know?
So many things.
Yeah, and I think it also ties back to like what our role too as a coach too, just like to educate but empower and not be so fixated. Like it's funny because like our job is kind of like heavily based on aesthetics, but like we have enough pressure in society, especially like for women too. And I think it's kind of like our we almost like responsibility to guide people to get to their goals safely and effectively, but that's not so just like, I don't know, constrained to an image, because we're more than that.
Yeah, she still has before and after pictures too. There's working out version of Marie and there's not working out as much Marie. And the working out is a healthier looking version every time.
All right. That's a good place to close it off there. All right, cool. Thank you guys very much for coming and sharing all of your ideas and everything.